If I could change my life, there's not a lot I'd change in it.
Absolutely, I would call
God has
myself
given
a
me faith.
feminist. I don't know how you
I
couldn't
went
be.
through so much physically with like my past surgeries and health issues that, you know, it's made me so impressed with what the
My
human.
mother passed at 48. She got killed by a drunk driver. My little brother was 10. My little sister was 13. But she had instilled in us so much about life, about how to treat people, being courteous and polite, the importance of education. She even talked to us about voting and stuff. We were so, she had really prepared us. I mean, she didn't know she was going to die, but that would be who I would say, yeah, she most definitely was a major influence in my life.
I think for me specifically, female writers have always been really pivotal in my life. I've always been kind of a voracious reader since a really, really young age, starting with, you know, like Judy Blume and those writers as an adolescent, and then going into graduate school, which I did for writing, a lot of the female Southern writers like Eudora Welty and those voices were always something that really I identified with a lot, not only because they come from the South and wrote so powerfully about the South, but traditionally male voices in Southern literature have always been kind of the most well-known. And so I loved kind of seeking out those strong female voices and really trying to find something to identify with and learn from.
I haven't thought about that. I was sort of reflecting before I came about, since my vocation is ministry, and I didn't have a female role model for ministry in South Georgia. I came across one or two women, like the entire South Georgia Conference my entire childhood. So not people I knew well, not people I identified with. And so it really wasn't until I left home and went to college and started kind of getting closer to Atlanta and getting kind of out more that I met women that were doing what I was sensing a call to do. I think as a child I'd never considered that I would be ordained. Like, women didn't do that.
My first base was Spokane, Washington, Fairchild Air Base. Now, I did a crazy thing. They asked you for 3 places you'd like to go. I put in Washington, not thinking about Washington State. And they gave me Washington, Spokane. The major thing I think going to the Air Force taught me was camaraderie, how you get along with one another. Because in basic training, if you messed up, I had to be punished too. So that's when you learn to get along with people. But that was necessary because in a war, you have to defend each other. I didn't understand it until much later in life. So yeah, it taught me how to just accept people how they are and just treat them accordingly.
When I was at Emory University in seminary, I accepted a student appointment. And the way our Methodist system works, you don't interview and choose your church, you're appointed by the bishop. So the church doesn't interview 3 candidates and say, this is the one we want. The church gets a call that this is who your new preacher's going to be. And it was a rural church on the Georgia-Alabama line, and so they got a call that they were about to have their first woman pastor. And they were not excited. So on moving day, when the church member who came to help me move my things, I was maybe 24, 25, was helping me move into the parsonage they provided. He made it clear on the drive here, he said, I don't think this is right, a woman being a minister, but we're going to try it. And on my first Sunday, about half the congregation had changed and become Baptist that week.
I was not lucky enough to know my grandparents on either side, really. Both of my grandmothers died before I was born. And so I think partially because I never met them and was never in touch necessarily in a real way with that generation is another reason why I was so pulled to women writers. It was a way to connect to my past a little bit in the South in their absence. And I think from a positive standpoint, you know, even without the physical presence of my grandmothers here, the idea of tradition and this is the way we do things because this is what our family does. Recipes in the kitchen are huge in my family. You know, we have recipes passed down from, you know, multiple generations that we go back to time and time again, and different little sayings and things that we do. I love that about the South. I love that there is this ability to stay so connected to your past, even if you haven't been, you know, physically able to connect with it because of all those deep-rooted traditions. On the flip side, that tradition thing can be a bit hampering to progress in some ways. And so I think, you know, for women in the South, being, equal with men, and, on social justice issues and political issues. It's been a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge. Challenges that maybe other women don't face to the degree that we do in other parts of the country. And so I think, we need to embrace and carry on those traditions, but at the same time, push the envelope where it's needed and where it really can make a difference.
The same man who said, I don't think this is a good idea, his son died unexpectedly. He was 42. And in the back of my mind, I'd only been there, 6 months or so. I figured they would call the old pastor to come back, call the man back to do the funeral, because this man was a pillar of our community. But they didn't. They trusted me to do the funeral. And there's this way in which that's when I became their pastor. Up until then, it was a lot of conversation about, could a girl do it? Could a woman be this? And again, I think that act of faith or trust, everything shifted. And after that, I felt there were still people, who disagreed, but I felt like the pastor of the church.
The first time I voted, I was in the Air Force then, and everybody voted, so it just wasn't no exciting moment. It was just something you do. So it's just always been a part of me, I guess. That's the only way I can explain it. My mom used to talk about when we were young, you need to vote. I read a lot, so I always knew that to vote was really quite a privilege. A lot of people died, got beat up, women and men, suffered. I love my mom a whole lot, and I would have never wanted her to be one of those people. Zoe, she's 11, and she was asking my grandma, why do you do that? Why do you care? I said, I care for you, because that's gonna make a difference for you in your life. So what grandma does now will affect you down the road. So you can go to any school you want to go to without being, you haven't encountered any of this yet, but you may. You don't have to what we call a name, or you can be judged, as Martin Luther King said, by the content of your character. And the only way to get that done is to continue to fight, fight, fight. So what else do we fight with? It's voting. That's what I would tell any young person. That's what I fight, so they can be judged by the content of their character.
My daughter's very, very much she's a leader. She's kind of a responsible kid, and took her with me on a trip to Guatemala, kind of a cultural immersion and service learning sort of thing. And wanted to show her Mayan ruins, wanted her to be in villages meeting young children. At the end of that trip, I asked her what her favorite thing was that we did. And again, I'm picturing sort of some picture-perfect touristy sort of thing that she would answer. And she said it was the day we had to walk for 9 miles. And I was kind of taken aback from that. So there had been protests in the country, and they closed down all the highways, but we had gone out to a village, and we had to walk about 9 miles back the Pan American Highway. And we hadn't prepared to walk. We didn't have water. It was really stressful, tense kind of day. And so when she said that was her favorite thing, I asked her why, and she said she said inconvenient. It was so inconvenient to have to walk back like that. And she said, but I think if you live there, that's what life is like. It's really inconvenient. And so by doing that, I got to really know what it's like to live there and really care about the people. So she's incredibly sensitive that way. And again, I think sometimes women are stereotyped as more sensitive, but I want to encourage her sensitivity, but to partner that with strength. Like, it doesn't mean you're sensitive, oh, you're emotional and you're going to cry, or oh, but she's a young woman, she's sensitive, and that will make her an even better leader, because she'll really see the surroundings around her and really take to heart the communities she lives in or travels to.
So I just found out not too long ago that I was having another boy, and it was actually kind of difficult for me because I grew up in such a female household. I have 2 aunts who I'm very close with. The kind of female presence has been so big in my life and so influential. And I was thrilled, of course, with my first son, and the second one I knew there was probably a good chance it was a boy. I just had a feeling. And of course, any baby is a blessing, and I'm so excited about it. But I always imagined myself having a daughter. Always. And we only want 2 children, and this is our second. And so I realized that that's just not going to happen. It's just maybe this isn't the way it was supposed to go. And I had kind of this bittersweet, I was so happy about this healthy baby that is coming in a couple months, but I also felt this kind of deep sense of loss about, like, I'll never have that daughter relationship that, like, I have with my mother. But as I've kind of sat with it more and more, I think, I've come to realize that, obviously I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. And I really started to think about, like, what it means to raise boys. I've always thought so much about what it means to have a daughter and raise a girl, but what does it mean to raise boys? And in some ways, I feel like mothers of boys have an even bigger responsibility on behalf of women to do it as the best you can. Because how boys grow up to treat women in their life will make a huge impact on the progress of all women. And so for me, raising boys that value strong women, seek them out, want them to be their friends, want them to be their partners, those are the kind of boys that I hope to raise. And that understand that, when everyone has an equal voice at the table, everyone benefits.
If I could change my life, there's not a lot I'd change in it. God has given me favor. I've had a good life, and I still have a good life. I would tell any young girl, or young man, but a particular girl, if you really believe something in your heart, pursue it. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't or don't, because you will regret it when you get older. I have no regrets. I really wanted to go in the Air Force, and my parents were all against it. It worked out well for me, and I thank God I went. So if you got anything you really, really want to do, do it, because you don't want that regret when you get old.